Okay, good morning. Thank you all for coming. My name is Jerry Coughlin. I had the distinct privilege of serving on the MetMin board for 8 years now. I vice chair the advancement committee. In my day job, I'm managing partner of Oak Point Advisors. I want to thank you all for showing up first thing this morning on a bright and beautiful, crisp morning. I know it's an early start, but thank you. Before I get started, I just want to make sure I recognize and thank the board members who are here. If I can ask you to please stand up. This is mostly so other guests here can know who you are and ask questions about the ministry if they have any. So please, for those of you who are board members of MetMin, would you mind standing up for a second to be recognized? Thank you. Hopefully you all were able to pick up your little bento box of breakfast that is provided by Inside the Box. This is one of our really successful social enterprises we sponsor at Metropolitan Ministries, so please dig in right away and enjoy it. And by the way, we do an awful lot on the catering side, so Inside the Box does a great job on the catering front. If you have an event that makes sense to use them, please consider them. I'm sure you'll enjoy this meal, but every meal they provide is fantastic. So thank you. I also want to give a special thanks to Kawa Coffee for providing the coffee this morning and getting everyone started and caffeinated on an early morning. So thank you to Kawa. You're sitting here inside the tent. Many of you have probably been here in the past, whether donating or volunteering. But this tent inspires hope. If you're around MetMin, you'll hear hope, and you'll hear the word inspire hope all the time. This year, we're going to serve 42,000 families at 12 different tent locations in partnership with 65 other partners that make that all possible. The Inspire Hope initiative is designed to get food and toys to families in need, living in communities of need. The work is not possible without our partners and well over 25,000 volunteers in 6 different counties. You are in MetMin's holiday headquarters for this massive mobilization of hope. Tours of this tent, by the way, at the end will be available if you want to understand how this all works and logistics work, so please feel free to stick around. I'd like to now introduce and thank Caspers Cares for being the sponsor of this year's business breakfast. Caspers Cares as a company is a great partner to us at Metropolitan Ministries. So I want to welcome Dustin Portillo from Caspers Community Relations to say a few words.
Thank you, sir, very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I was told to keep this very brief, so here goes. Good morning. Thanks. There's more. We are all here for a mission, and Caspers Company has been around for over 63 years, and I'm sure many of you know the Caspers brand, but 3 words that really define what I do every day is corporate social responsibility and giving back largely to our community. And so Metropolitan Ministries is one of those organizations every year that just blows it out of the water, and we're so fortunate that we have them in our area. Can we please give them a nice round of applause? They are amazing. Thank you all. I hope that you all enjoy this morning, have a good time, and thank you all very much for being here and allowing our company to be one of the sponsors for the breakfast. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dustin, again, and thank you to Caspers Cares. The leadership of the Mayor of Tampa, along with her staff, the construction and permitting departments at the city, have moved mountains and helped make this tent a reality. We're very grateful for the Mayor's commitment to help vulnerable families in Tampa Bay and want to thank her for allowing us to have the tent on this property again this year. I'm now very proud to introduce a leader who inspires hope in our community, Mayor Jane Castor.
Thank you, and good morning. And what I like to refer to the dead of winter here in Tampa. I came home from Boston last night for a couple of days, and it's always nice to visit someplace else and then come back to paradise, right? Without a doubt. But we are so fortunate to be able to live here in what I truly believe in my heart is the greatest city in the nation. And each of you are a representation of what makes this city great. None of us would have chosen to go through what we have gone through the last 18 months. But we're so fortunate to have the organizations that prepare for these types of crises. And MetMin and Tim Marks are those groups, the individuals that come together with the help of the business community and individuals to make sure that no one falls through the cracks. Many of you have seen the statistics. If you haven't heard them already, MetMin delivered millions of meals last year to individuals in need, thousands of hotel nights. The families that they serve at their location down on Florida Avenue are people that are on the edges and just on that point of going under for the last time, if not for MetMin to pull them up and really bring the dignity back to them and put them back on their feet. So I am so thankful to be able to have Metropolitan Ministries here. I'm glad that the city can partner. I'm always there for Tim, and he's always there for me. We are on speed dial, anything that we can do to help our community. Hopefully, we will have another location this year. This tent will not be here because we will be providing much needed housing on this particular location here. And I also want to say that I personally know the impact that Metropolitan Ministries has on individuals' lives, especially during the holiday seasons. And the reason for that is MetMin's telephone number happens to be 209-1000. My number happens to be 309-1000. So I fulfill a number of requirements for turkeys every single year through Metropolitan Ministries, and I thank you for allowing me to do that. But please, if you have not helped out Metropolitan Ministries, either through volunteering, and I can tell you from experience, you get more than you give when you come out and volunteer, another great aspect of our community. But make sure that you are supporting them financially. You will see in the literature that almost 90% of the funding that you provide goes back to serve those in need in our community. So thank you for what you do, Metropolitan Ministries. Thank you for the board, or to the board, for continuing to help Metropolitan Ministries grow and serve those in need in our community. Thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you again, Mayor, for all you do and your administration does to help support our ministry. Thank you. MetMin is, we think, a thought leader in the industry in caregiving. We continue to receive national recognition for the continuum of care model. The ministry is an innovator in caring for families who are homeless or at the risk of being homeless in our community, using state-of-the-art software to track clients, manage inventory, and provide a dignified experience to its clients, its customers. Metro likes to study and learn from innovators in other fields and to constantly promote growth and change in the way they advance their important mission. That's why we're here today. We picked a difficult topic, but one we think is very important and innovative, going to be transformational. Like MetMin, we wanted to find thought leaders in this and try to continue to engage this community to be part and help understand what's going on in the world around us, but also stay engaged in the ministry itself. Today's panel is comprised of innovators with experience in blockchain, which is changing how we conduct business. These entrepreneurs have a unique perspective to share, and I'm privileged now to introduce our panelists to you. I will be reading off the bios of each of the panelists and be turning this over. I guess I'll make one quick comment. There'll be a lot of words in here that may be over a lot of people's heads. They're certainly over mine. I've read this thing 15 times. So don't feel funny about that or embarrassed. Our goal is to try to demystify a very complicated topic. I'm going to introduce the first panelist is Rosa Shores. Rosa Shores is a 9-year veteran in the blockchain industry and the co-founder and CEO of Block Spaces, headquartered here in Tampa. She's the former vice president of the Florida Blockchain Business Association, which is dedicated to ensuring business-friendly, industry-led legislation promoted in the state, and continues to serve as that organization's corporate and community engagement committee chair. She's a member of the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services Ag Innovation Work Group, as well as a member of the Blockchain Task Force for the National Produce Marketing Association. Rosa, please come on up. Sounds like a fairly relevant bio. Our next panelist is Michael O'Rourke. Michael is a software developer and entrepreneur, a Tampa native and a USF alum. He purchased his first Bitcoin in 2013, hope he still has it, and co-founded Pocket Network, Inc. in 2017. Since launching the protocol in July 2020, Pocket Network has served billions of requests for developers building on Web3 and has an active community of hundreds of contributors. Michael, come on up. Michael's the co-founder and CEO of Pocket Network. Please come on up. He also will definitely have the best hair on the panel. Our next panelist is Miles Harrell, Chief Operating Officer of Stratos Technologies. As CEO of Stratos Technologies, Miles leads operations as well as oversees capital formation and contracted accounting, recruiting, fund administration, CFO, and audit functions across the Stratos complex. Doesn't have much else to do. Prior to joining Stratos, Miles served as a strategy manager and director of equity research at Brookmont Capital, a top-performing U.S. equity manager with nearly $1 billion in assets under management. While at Brookmont, the investment portfolio Miles managed was a top decile in the Morningstar category out of over 50 comparable strategies since its inception in 2015. In addition to the portfolio management, Miles recruited, trained, and managed the firm's research analyst team covering every sector of the U.S. equity market. Miles instrumental in building the organization at Brookmont, leading to AUM more than doubling during his tenure. Miles received his BS in economics and finance from SMU. And finally, our moderator this morning is Joe Hamilton, head of network Metacity and publisher of the St. Pete Catalyst. Joe serves as head of network Metacity, as I mentioned. Metacity is a next-generation Web3 social operating system for a physical city. Metacity tools include NFT minting, NFT marketplaces, and personal NFT galleries where Metazans can display their favorite NFT treasures. He is a publisher of the St. Pete Catalyst and co-founder of the St. Petersburg Group. Joe, thank you for helping us lead today's panel, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it. We work on the branding a little bit. It's Metacity, not a Metacity, which unfortunately I think that sounds like a disease that we don't want to catch. But kind of walking the path that Jerry started. When people talk to me about blockchain, the first thing they want to tell me is how much they don't understand blockchain. And it is a paradigm shift, and it is a little bit to get your head around. But our goal today is we have some of the best minds in the region to distill it down so that you can get over that discomfort and leave here feeling confident about A, the concepts, and B, understanding how you can apply those concepts to your life and to your business if relevant. And we're going to have some time at the end for questions, so be prepared and be ready to have everything you want to know answered. So understanding blockchain, some of the terms you may have heard are immutable ledger and decentralization. So a blockchain is essentially a new way to store data. It's the evolution of a database. And how that evolution occurs is the data goes into blocks, and those blocks are added to previous blocks that all validate each other. So that once it's in a block, it's there forever. And as you add new blocks, it simply continues that chain. And that eliminates the ability for anybody to go in and change it, for anybody to go in and hack it, for somebody to conveniently change an entry. And how that is backed up is that everybody has a copy of this ledger. It is a, so the world can see all the transactions. Everybody, and that's how you earn security, is because it's validated and everybody can see it. And what that serves is a bigger idea of decentralization. And what decentralization requires is trust. And you think about what trusted third parties are, what the purpose that your bank serves, the purpose that your government serves, even the purpose of transacting capital around the world, that all requires now, or did require, a trusted third party. And with decentralization, you can eliminate the need for trust in a lot of instances. So some basic examples. Right now we give money to a bank, and a bank loans it out, and they capture a lot of that value and return a little bit to us in our interest and savings. With a decentralized, trustable middleman that's not a bank, you can actually put your money into this DAO. So we'll give you your first vocabulary word. A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. It's essentially a program that runs itself. It reports to the blockchain, so everybody can see everything that's going on. You put your money in. Maybe somebody has some Bitcoin that they don't want to sell because they don't want to pay the taxes on their gains, but they need some cash. So they'll put the Bitcoin into this. They'll borrow some money out, or take some money out. They'll use it. They'll pay it back with interest. And you who put your money into that get that interest. And what's missing from that? The bank. Now instead of the bank taking 80% of the value, you get the value. And that's one of the ways that decentralization works. And another big one is ownership. So if you think about the function of government, right? They have all the records for who lives where, who owns what. Now you have a blockchain that can do that. And how that's being expressed now, that record of ownership, is NFTs, non-fungible tokens. So you've heard the term NFT. That simply is a record of ownership that's out there for the whole world to see that says you own this. That's another third party function that is no longer necessary. And when you remove third-party functions like that, all the money that and value that those third parties absorb now goes back to people, and they can achieve a lot of that themselves. So it allows people who create things and have money and all of those things that they required, sort of services that took a lot of the value. And many would argue an inordinate amount of the value because you had to use them, right? It allows you to recapture some of that value. So that's the mindset you can be in, is understanding that it's simply a secure way to store data throughout the world and transact throughout the world in a frictionless manner because it eliminates a lot of the need for trust. So with that sort of foundation to start with, I'd like to start first with Rosa, who has been absolutely instrumental with her partner Gabe Higgins, who's here, and in shepherding the understanding of blockchain through meetups and what they do with block spaces, which is helping companies utilize blockchain. So Rosa, I'll turn it over to you to tell a little bit about your story.
Okay, we're going to give you guys a quiz on everything he just said. So you ready? I'm going to hold up your hand if you know the answer. No, okay, so the first time I ever heard about blockchain was really when I first heard about Bitcoin in 2012, and my now partner, a business partner, told me about it, and of course, like everybody else who first heard about it, which you guys probably already did too, thought he was absolutely insane. It sounded like the craziest thing I'd ever heard. I was like, is this something you use for gaming, or what is this really? But I was at that time working as a digital analyst in the e-commerce division at HSN, and we were very much focused on one-touch payment processing at the shopping cart. And it was really obvious to me that once a technology that acted much like a digital cash was out into the world, no matter how rudimentary it was at the time, there wouldn't be anywhere else but for that technology to continue to be developed. And then I really immediately started understanding the underlying technology of cryptocurrency, which is blockchain. And blockchain, as Joe mentioned, acts sort of like a next generation database that allows you to easily track and trace items. And I, being in retail, immediately saw some opportunities for utilizing blockchain in a way that could potentially solve track and trace problems within the supply chain. As sort of a personal story, my daughter is adopted from China, and I've been inside of a Chinese sweatshop, and I felt that there was a really great opportunity to where if brands could potentially have a QR code that you could scan and you could trace that product all the way back to its source. As a consumer, what could that do for a brand to be able to say, I know for 100% certain this thing has been ethically sourced, and it lift the social consciousness of brands. So again, these were very early days for blockchain, and these were use cases that are now actually happening. But at that time, you know, people were still thinking we were kind of crazy. So we really wanted to be able to have a group of people, like-minded people, that could talk about this technology, start thinking about these use cases for this technology. And so we started the meetups here in 2014. Michael was a part of those meetups for a really long time, and that sort of segued into us opening block spaces in 2017 that kind of became a hub of innovators and entrepreneurs and people that were looking to understand this technology and learn about it, and also develop products as well. And we quickly became sort of a hub for businesses that wanted to integrate this technology into their businesses and use it in all kinds of interesting and cool ways. And so we started seeing problems within enterprise blockchain, what they call enterprise blockchain, which is blockchain that's being leveraged sort of for business use cases. And we started developing the product that we are working on today. Along the way, we've been involved in some really interesting and thoughtful projects. I think one of the ones is, as we're here today and we're talking about, you know, how these technology can be used for social good. We did submit the first appropriation last year in the state of Florida, the first blockchain appropriation, that was building an application on the front end that would connect the black farmers of Florida to citizens within a USDA designated food desert in downtown St. Pete. And on the front end, it simply connected farmers with those citizens so they could get food easily into this area. But on the back end, we were going to leverage blockchain to allow those farmers to transact in new ways and be within networks of much larger suppliers. So it was helping the farmers on the back end and helping the citizens on the front end. And so these are sorts of use cases that we're seeing all the time now with blockchain that not only provide for a social good, but make businesses more efficient. So I hope that everybody can take away from this as we're kind of walking through this, that as we evolve into this world that is what we envision a more decentralized and distributed world, there is all kinds of ways this technology is being used to leverage more equitable conditions for people. And that's really kind of what drives, I think, everybody on this stage.
Thank you. So Rosa talked about how they've been helping businesses understand how they can leverage blockchain. Someone who's really doing amazing work in helping developers do some of those, build some of those projects for businesses on blockchain. So Michael O'Rourke, Pocket is an extraordinary company that is going to do a ton for getting the talent that we need to build these important projects going. So, Michael, help people understand what you're doing to help average or non-blockchain developers get into the game.
Yeah, I think my mic's okay, so I'll just put this down. Real quick, by a quick show of hands, how many people here own or have owned crypto here in the crowd? Nice. Oh, wow. It's like, what, 30, 40%? That's really exciting. Great. Yeah, just to set, that was a great intro, Joe, just to set a little bit more context about why this is so important. I was born in the Dominican Republic, moved to Tampa when I was 2 years old, and I've used Western Union many, many times. There's really three things that have really kind of prepared me for Bitcoin when I discovered it in 2013. One of them being from the Caribbean, having used this painful money transfer in the past. I played a ton of video games growing up, a lot of World of Warcraft, and being these kind of digital economies in a very holistic way, and really learning about these purely digital things actually having real value. Like I quit playing this game, and I sold my World of Warcraft account for $300 on eBay, as an example, right? And it's fully digital, not real, but really had value for people. Right, and lastly, I worked at two credit unions. I worked at Tampa Bay Federal and at Suncoast, selling loans for 2 years. And I've seen thousands of credit reports between 2011 and 2012, and you really kind of saw the pain of people who are trying to get into the financial system, and how difficult it is just for someone to just get a credit card or a loan or whatever it is. So I'd say like that really, maybe radicalized me in some form or fashion, until I read an article in 2013, found out about Bitcoin, and really just, as soon as I was like, wow, I could send money to my cousin in like 30 seconds without knowing who he is, where he's from, without having to fill anything out, was just absolutely mind-blowing. Just absolutely just mind-blowing. I mean, this is something that, we've raised as a company about $20 million, and 75% of that money came in through stable coins on the blockchain, because none of our investors want to deal with the legacy banking system, because it's just that much easier as an experience, right? So with that, I just really dove deep into the space, and you start to see the fact that you can program money, which is, again, another really mind-blowing thing. Joe was talking a lot about trustlessness and decentralization. Me as a software developer, I've used Google APIs, I've used Twitter APIs, I've used Facebook APIs, and when they change their algorithm, it completely, in many cases, ruins your business. I'm sure you guys have heard stories of someone like this, these big companies changing their algorithms, and effectively cutting the knees out of any business, right? Yelp, so on and so forth, right? And the first time I deployed a smart contract on Ethereum, a very simple hello world, and I was like, anyone can interact with this, or no one can interact with this. And knowing that it can't change, and knowing that what I put in that program is exactly what anyone can use it for and what it's going to do, is really, truly a world-changing thing. It's hard to overstate how big of a deal this is for people building products, not just in the financial system, but I'm sure you've heard a lot about NFTs and gaming and a whole bunch of other things. These smart contracts are really what are changing the world, and are really what all these buzzwords you hear are really based on this, right? And that's kind of how we ended up leading to Pocket. And at a high level, Pocket is a developer platform like Twilio, Stripe. Any website that you see that you're paying something, right? They integrate these services, whether it's texting or payments, whatever it might be. You can think of us as something similar like that, but instead of texting or calls or payments, we provide data for applications. So when you see like a balance on your wallet, when you make a trade on some decentralized application, Pocket effectively can power and will power all of these kind of Web3 applications, right? And yeah, like Joe said, we've been working on this. We kind of stumbled across the idea in late 2016. Spent about 3 years kind of designing, architecting, and building it, and really launched it about 16 months ago. And just to set a little bit more context, Pocket coordinates infrastructure. And I think this is a really important point. I view blockchains as fundamentally coordination technology. And really, there's only been 3 major, before blockchains, coordination technologies in human history. The first one being religion. Once religion was, really became a thing, that's really got humans to come together and coordinate. The second one was governments. Once governments were invented, and you kind of had like the god kings of pharaohs back in Egypt, who kind of saw kind of like the transition to actual kings and so on and so forth. And the fourth one was the invention of the corporation in the 1600s. And all 3 of these things have lasted thousands of years, right? And I fundamentally believe that blockchains are a 4th coordination technology on the impact of humanity, like these other 3 ones. So I just wanted to set a little bit more context as kind of the importance of this, particularly in this world and the internet that we live today, right? We kind of have an infrastructure and an architecture of society that is based off the last 500 years. And the internet has changed everything. And for the first time, these blockchains are adding real guardrails and really hard lines on the internet that really didn't exist before Bitcoin. So it's really, really, really exciting. And I really wouldn't be working, I really couldn't see myself working anywhere else. So.
Yeah, I just want to, is my mic on? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Just to tack onto that, and I know we definitely need to get to Miles, but blockchains require a network of participants, just exactly like what Michael said, and in a business setting too. And so we're seeing this world move. When you hear this term Web 2, Web 3, that's what the Web 3 world is this more kind of decentralized, distributed planet. And that includes businesses as well. So we're seeing businesses that are leveraging blockchain demanding cooperation from not just their business partners, but sometimes they're even their competition, which is, you kind of maybe hear this term every now and again called co-opetition, where it creates a world where you have a network of participants that have to cooperate in order for that business process or the infrastructure to even work. So it's this more kind of equitable, distributed, decentralized world where everybody is collaborating and participating, and it's a technology that actually demands that participation. So it's very exciting.
Pretty deep, pretty cool. Before Miles tells us all how to get rich from blockchain, vocabulary aside, stable coin, Michael used the term stable coin. That is, cryptocurrencies go up and down. That is a coin that exists, that they work to keep it pegged to a currency, usually the dollar, so that you can transact with it with good faith that it's going to stay at a certain price. I wanted to one I think important mental leap people struggle a lot with is in NFTs. Michael used a few examples of value, in a video game as kind of an interesting novelty, and I think this is a really important paradigm shift when you think about, how we appreciate value being stored. So if you think of something, historical document like the Gettysburg Address. How much is the Gettysburg Address worth? How much would a copy of the Gettysburg Address or the Constitution sell for? And if you say millions and millions of dollars, is it the paper that's worth millions and millions of dollars? Is it the ink on the paper? I mean, if you had another document from the same time period, would it be worth millions and millions of dollars? And the answer is no. What we've accepted as a store of value is ink on paper. It's kind of arbitrary, really, right? But that's it. We say, oh, that makes sense to me. But now we live in a world where the next, when Elon Musk lands on Mars and does the Mars Constitution, that's not going to be written on ink on paper. It's going to be typed into a computer, and it's going to remain digital. And so it's a logical step forward to say we have to have some way to represent that value in our society, these artifacts, these rarities, these singularities. And the leap forward is simply saying it doesn't have to be ink on paper anymore. It can be this actually more secure, less able to be, counterfeited, immutable record of this. So I think that's helpful for people when they want to know why are these NFTs selling for so much money, and really what do they do. So with any big change, and I think Michael beautifully articulated how big of a change this is, there's opportunity, there's lots of new innovation, lots of new companies, and Miles is at the forefront of investing in and supporting those companies. So what's the lay of the land on all the great opportunities?
Well, it's really simple and very narrow, so it should be just a quick sentence. The space is obviously incredibly intriguing. From a return perspective, you won't find anything as compelling, but let me back out a little bit and talk about Stratos and my background. So prior to joining Stratos, which I founded with a business partner of mine, I do have a hedge fund background, so fundamental equity research, trading, and I sort of caught the cryptography blockchain bug in 2013, but it took a while for me to make a career shift to do it full time. But nevertheless, I've been a long-term philosophical believer in the power of this technology. And I think that its adoption to the average consumer has been obscured by the fact that the prerequisite layers, as they're described, that have been built now are necessarily pretty complex and technical. You've got to have domain-specific knowledge across, hardware, software, and you got to have somebody like Michael who can come in to do it. And that's going to change, and we spoke briefly about Web 3, and I'd like to get to that in a moment, but I think that because the space up till perhaps even a year ago, this is changing now, has been so technical, it's harder for people like us to describe it in a broad setting that makes sense. So I'm going to attempt to stay extremely high level and try and use some analogies that transcend some of the syntax in the space that I think is very useful for the technologists working in it, but for broader understanding can kind of cog the wheels a bit. So I think about blockchains now as a new computer architecture. And I mean that because you've got a distributed group of computers, nodes, what have you, that support a interface for developers like Michael that feels like a computer. It's got this distributed set of computers that are maintaining the state, and then you've got a programming language that you can communicate with that computer to build things. And mainly smart contracts on Ethereum is one of the popular use cases now. And for the reasons that Michael was describing, these new computer architectures built off the back of blockchain empower new features and new relationships between previous disparate economic actors in the space that weren't really feasible with Web 2-based computers, which is to say, there's somebody behind that computer that could ultimately change their mind. And to, again, dovetail off Michael's point, and when, the Yelp example, if I'm going to take the time to, build my business, I don't want the rules of that system to change and affect me down the road in, ways that could be really damaging. And so the appeal of these new computer sets is that via the trustlessness, I don't need to trust a third party. The code itself is running immutably throughout time. And so that creates just, we could talk for weeks about it, but all sorts of new governance structures and business models and economic structures within those business models. I mean, many of the protocols that we invest in at Stratos, $1 of revenue is pretty much $1 of earnings. They don't have the same type of economic burden that traditional real-world businesses have, and they can launch at scale, given that network effects are intrinsic to, DeFi and Web3 and really the crypto space generally. And so that means that in a very short period of time, from a venture capital investing standpoint, a traditional venture fund is probably locked for 10 years, may have some extendable periods beyond that, because that's reasonably the time period it may take for a real-world business to get off the ground from zero. That time frame is compressed extremely in decentralized finance and crypto investing generally. Some of the companies that we have invested in like a seed round, which is to say very embryonic, have gone from that stage at say like a $10 million valuation to more like a $400 million valuation in the course of 18 months, as opposed to a number of years. And so the return potential is huge. And what I'll say just generally about that is that in technology venture investing, your best bet is to follow where the best engineering talent, the best development talent, the most creative people in that space are moving. And these are people like Michael who can see the landscape from a technical perspective and understand where it's going before the masses, and thus are early adopters and early excited parties in it. And so that, again, that is changing a bit now as the use cases of this technology is becoming more understood. But the way to make money in early stage venture technology investing is to follow the best founders, the best developers. And given the unique architectural aspects of this new computer system that I refer to as the blockchain, it's attracting development talent from all of the biggest firms in Web 2 you've heard of. Google, Facebook, Amazon, and the like. The space has a magnetism to it, both because of the real-world change that it can affect across almost all facets of the economy in the world over time, but also that compressed economic outcome. Why would I, start coding on a new Web 2 project that may take me a number of years to scale and have some type of liquidity event when I could have more real-world impact over a shorter time period and experience a similar outcome? And so at Stratos, we are hyper-focused on supporting the space, and really we do this with capital, but also with assistance to the companies in much the same way a traditional venture business would support their portfolio companies. What I would say is that there is a lot of hype in the space, and that's a good thing. These hype cycles that we've seen, 11, 13, and 17, that brings in, obviously the price attracts interest, but that brings more developers into the space. And the development activity, unlike the price swings, is just up and to the right. And so it's becoming more and more entrenched. And you're not late. You're still early. The blockchain technology is building now what we're referring to as Web3, and Web3 will feel very native to the consumer, the average consumer, in many ways that interacting with the crypto space now, isn't as user-friendly. So very soon, it's gotten much better.
Putting it lightly, but yeah.
It's gotten much better, but nevertheless, with the advent of Web3, the applications built on top of blockchain are going to start to feel very relevant and native to average consumers. And in fact, what will probably occur, you can think of something like a Venmo. They'll probably, well, there inevitably will be and already are examples of that in the crypto ecosystem. But what will occur in probably the next 2 years is that due to some technical scaling issues in the space that are being solved, transaction costs are going to go, they're going to get very cheap. And what will happen is that all of a sudden there'll just be a new user interface that feels just like Venmo, and it'll launch and probably be available in app stores where other apps are now. But the consumer won't know that the back end of that is actually completely blockchain run. And so we're just in this transitionary period where it's obviously extremely exciting to be an investor in the space, because I think everyone on this panel can see where we're going. And we know that very soon that understanding is going to be much broader, the adoption is going to accelerate, the value generation is going to be supreme.
Wonderful, thank you. And Miles gives us a couple more vocabulary opportunities. One thing I think...
I tried not to, but
no,
it's hard for us to be high and low.
I think one of the worst things that happened was the term cryptocurrency. I think it's confusing, and it's not really correct, because it's not currencies. A lot of people think it's trying to be the next euro or trying to be the next dollar. Coins, crypto, some of them have the use of storing value. That's your Bitcoins of the world. But most cryptocurrencies are actually coins that are sold to support projects. Like Michael has a coin on Pocket, which helps the Pocket network run. And so when you're buying coins, you're actually almost buying shares in the company or in the project. And that's to Miles' point, when you're looking at those, that's why you have to go back to the team behind the coin, because they're the ones that are going to build that project, that are going to give that coin the value. And keeping with the decentralized, philosophy, those coins now are completely liquid, right? So it's just, you can sell them on exchanges at every stage of the project's growth. When if you need to cash out, or you've made enough money, or you have a different feeling about where the project's going. So it allows anybody in the world to invest in startups and invest in projects. It allows them to be completely liquid at every stage of that company's evolution, which has just never happened before. Usually you had to go through somebody and put money in and follow all these rules, and maybe you got an exit a long time ago. And the other one we've mentioned a couple times is Web3. Web3, again, is just following that line of decentralization. A simple sort of user example would be, historically people would go on YouTube, creators, build their audience up there, sell ads on YouTube, and YouTube took 40% of it. That's that overcharging for being that centralized third party. Now, there are all these tools where people will build their audience on YouTube and send them to a Substack, send them to a Patreon, send them to places where they can connect directly, sell NFTs. They can connect directly with their audience, and usually they're retaining 97% plus of that value now. So the old school ways of taking that big chunk out for being that middleman are gone. With that being said, we have time for a couple of questions. I think we have a microphone floating around. Does anybody have anything that they must know? We have one here. Sure, I'm going to let Michael take that one. Proof of work, proof of stake, or Rosa?
Yeah, Rosa.
Just to reiterate, your question was the environmental impact of, I'm assuming probably what you're hearing about and thinking about is mining Bitcoin or mining cryptocurrency. Miners, the concept of mining is how cryptocurrency is kind of created within this environment of blockchain. And think about cryptocurrency as I mentioned before, blockchain is a network of participants that have to validate the transactions on the blockchain. So just think about it as, how does this become a distributed network? Well, it becomes a distributed network because everybody's running that ledger on their own computer system, think of it like that, and they have to validate the transactions. So that's how it makes it decentralized and distributed, is they're incentivized to say, yes, that transaction happened. So we have this full ledger. The reason they're incentivized to do that and to burn that kind of energy is because they're earning cryptocurrency. So think of crypto as just the incentive to participate in the network. That's what it is. So the activity of mining is actually solving all those complicated problems on the blockchain and validating those transactions. And so there's a lot that has been said about how much energy that burns and the environmental impact of mining those cryptocurrency and validating all of those transactions. What I would say is miners are incredibly incentivized to have the least expensive energy sources that they can. It is very expensive to run these mining networks. So they are the first people that look to renewable energies. How we can have the least expensive energy sources. And so the chances that miners are going to kind of pave the way to how we're leveraging energy and renewable energy sources is they probably are leading the way in all of the world, because they are very incentivized to have the least expensive way to run those mining operations. Is there anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, and if you've heard of, I think Michael Saylor made a really fantastic point about Bitcoin mining, and the percentage of renewable energy going towards mining is only increasing, and it's happening faster. Saylor paints this really fascinating vision of, in the past we've had cities around ports, rivers, these sorts of places. He sees a world where we have cities, in places where where today there's no one, but you have this renewable energy source in the middle, powered by proof of work mining. And I'd also like to point out that proof of work mining is the smallest portion of crypto. It's becoming increasingly smaller portion of most blockchains today. In fact, I'd venture to say 80 to 90% of new blockchains, Pocket included, are not proof of work. There's something else called proof of stake, and we have 10 minutes left. I'm not going to talk about the differences between proof of work and proof of stake, but the important part is, instead of using energy, you're using capital, which is many, many magnitudes more energy efficient. So combined with Bitcoin already effectively moving from, just normal electricity, coal plants, so on and so forth, we're seeing, rivers, wind, volcanoes. I mean, so I think that's, in my opinion, it's
Excess methane from oil and gas.
Yeah, it's not a concern at all, and it's kind of like, I'd kind of compare it to kind of, COVID really exposed the fragility of our supply chain system across the world, and now we're seeing the world kind of snap back to something a little bit more resilient across the entire world. We kind of have this inefficiency in proof of work mining that's giving us the benefits of resiliency, right? And I would compare it to, like, in the 60s with ARPANET, you had to go on a terminal to send an email, right? That's kind of where we are today. I mean, in terms of the technology, in terms of sophistication of the economic models, the supply chain, all these things. So everyone is really trying to get much, much more efficient over time. And the fact that Bitcoin has been able to bootstrap a $1 trillion blockchain in 12 years, and the impact that it's had, me personally, that's a trade-off over these last 10 years that is just totally worth it, right? Especially in the context of it in the direction that it's moving.
And I am going to attempt to do a 30-second vocabulary interlude. Proof of work, we talked about validating the block. That's when everybody tries to validate it, and so whoever gets there first wins the reward. Proof of stake, everybody sort of puts a lottery ticket in, and and the system picks one person to solve it, they get the reward. So instead of everybody doing the proof of work, everybody's working, the lottery ticket is their proof of stake, and only one person ends up doing the computer exercise to solve that, to validate that block, greatly reducing energy usage. I think we're over here.
Artificial intelligence being used for security to deal with those issues, like I think the Hong Kong based company, I think Bitfinex had a $73 million hack, and Ether had a $60 million hack, and I think Bythumb had 30,000 users' data released. What have you done since with respect to artificial intelligence and other security with respect to blockchain?
I can take it. Well, I mean, blockchain actually probably won't, to me, reach its fullest potential until we're fully interacting with AI and IoT and all of these kind of next generation technologies. And blockchain becomes kind of that infrastructure for all of those Web3 technologies. So when you think about autonomous vehicles or you know, our refrigerator saying that we need more milk and pinging a blockchain, to have a completely enclosed system that has no human interaction, that's really what a blockchain is made for. That's why cryptocurrency is such a fantastic use case for blockchain, because that whole process can happen with really no human interaction. So even when you think about within a supply chain, you know, this concept of enterprise blockchain that has blockchains running with no token, we feel like this is sort of this next generation database that's really necessary for efficiencies within businesses. But those blockchains probably will not reach their maximum capabilities until they can actually interact with IoT devices and AI within the supply chain. So there's no human inputting it. But we are definitely moving there. And you know, Kathy Wood just moved here from ARK Invest, and that is her whole entire thesis, is that all of these emerging technologies will be, the foundation will be blockchain. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could add to that, we're kind of in the middle of a societal shift in terms of how many people in a startup and how much value each individual can make, right? Yeah. Like WhatsApp sold for what $20 billion with 30 employees, right? And we're seeing, you know, these blockchains start to have the same. We're seeing just across the board, across all tech, people basically have the same kind of impact. And what's ending up happening is, because of the internet, because one person can make such a large impact with AI, blockchain, you know, name your buzzword, right? We're seeing a shift where, you know, 2% of society is kind of building the stuff, and the rest, the 98 other percent is like, what do I do, right? And that's why you're seeing today things like GME, these meme stocks, right? We're seeing the financialization of society as a result of this, as a kind of a kind of all these other technologies kind of coalescing together. So I just wanted to kind of add a little bit there.
With that being said, we are out of time. Our panelists will be hanging out afterwards and love to talk and answer some more questions. And I forgot Ms. Gunn's title, so I'm just going to run up and grab it so I can introduce the next speaker. So let's give a round of applause, please, for our information. Claudia. All right. And Metropolitan Ministries brought us here to show, because they are innovators in the space, and they're looking to give value and ROI on your investment in them going forward, and they've been doing that in the past and have a great track record, and someone who exemplifies that great work is Ms. Claudia Gunz. It's my pleasure to introduce her. Come on up. Thank you, folks. I appreciate it. Thank you. Claudia is the Assistant Vice President of Case Management Services. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Claudia Gunz, and I'm the Associate VP of Case Management at Metropolitan Ministries. Today, I'm here to share my story of my journey to Metropolitan Ministries and the staff and volunteers that shaped my experience along the way. In the fall of 2011, I was unfortunate to lose my job as a part of a mass layoff. I was one of 200 employees that had to find a new source of income. As a single mom with 2 kids and a current graduate student, I knew that I had to make quick decisions in order to provide for my family. I applied for unemployment benefits and created a strict budget to adhere to for the lean months ahead. In the spring of 2012, I had an unexpected car repair that put a major dent in my finances. I had to make a decision. How was I going to support my family this month? I've heard of Metropolitan Ministries before and was familiar with the holiday tent. And I've had the opportunity to share in the joys and see Santa Claus with my kids and other experiences in the holiday tent. But now I had to come to Metropolitan Ministries for a food box. I felt embarrassed and fearful of how the staff and other people might judge me for making that decision. But I knew I had to do what I had to do for my kids. So I gathered all the important documents and came to Metropolitan Ministries the next day. I parked in that infamous gravel lot. Many of you might know that lot. I parked my car and I quickly ran over to the outreach department and I froze. I thought, again, people are going to judge me for coming to Metropolitan Ministries for a food box. They're going to have condescending conversation with me and judgmental stares. And the lobby was going to be filled with screaming kids, and it was going to be mass chaos. It was nothing like that. I opened the double doors and was immediately greeted by modern gospel music that made me calm and soothed my soul. I saw that the office was clean and organized, and the queue was advancing pretty rapidly, so I joined that line, and I made it to the front desk, and I saw my guardian angel, Miss Marcia. Miss Marcia sitting in table 6. Miss Marcia was nothing but kind and compassionate. She reassured me that everything was going to be okay, even after I confided in her that I was embarrassed and fearful for being in Metropolitan Ministries that day. I made my way to the back, sat down with other staff and volunteers that informed me of other services available through Metropolitan Ministries. At that time, I didn't need anything else, but was grateful for the opportunity. The volunteers provided me with dignity and respect as they allowed me to choose the items for my food box. I made a vow that day that I would return to Metropolitan Ministries, but not as a client, but one day as a staff. I had that opportunity in spring of 2013 on my birthday. I interviewed for a case management position. My interviewer, Carrie Roller, was very strict. She could teach a master class in poker face. I could not read anything that I didn't know if I was going to get the job or not, so I was kind of fearful. But I was confident. I explained to her that I was a recent graduate of USF and that I was interested in showing her that I could provide the clients with my knowledge and skills. My previous experience would be valuable to Metropolitan Ministries. Carrie removed her badge and gave it to me, and on the back of our badge, it actually has our mission statement. She wanted me to read that to her and actually pick out a word in the mission statement that meant the most to me and explain why. 3 words stood out to me: alleviate suffering, promote dignity, and instill self-sufficiency. They all made a lot of sense, but one meant the most: to instill self-sufficiency. I explained to her why it was important to me. As in a previous client, I felt it was my responsibility to come back and provide that same loyalty and appreciation and respect that was given to me the day that I came the year before. Again, I left not knowing if I got that job, but again, I was confident. A few days later, I received a call, and I was elated to be part of the Metropolitan Ministries team. 8.5 years later, I'm here, not as a case manager, but as the Associate VP of Case Management. So, thank you. I am glad every day for the opportunity that's been afforded to me, and thankful for all the staff and volunteers that I've met along the way. I thank all the community members that are here today, and I encourage you to continue to provide hope to people like myself that just needed a helping hand, and other members in the community that need your help. Every little bit that you provide to Metropolitan Ministries, whether you volunteer or give monetary donations, are very helpful. I thank you for the opportunity, and God bless.
I'm Tim Marks. I serve as the president and CEO of Metropolitan Ministries, and I'm the luckiest guy in the world. They have employees like Claudia Gunz as part of our team. Let's thank her one more time. You know, Claudia's story is one of thousands. You heard Jerry say we're going to serve close to 42,000 families this year. And behind me are 400 of those food boxes that are going to be going out to the community. I remember that number, 400 boxes. Innovation is what we've been talking about today, and we at Metro believe in innovation, but in our vision statement, we talk about our striving to be America's most effective caregiver, and that's what we look at every day. How can we be better today and better tomorrow? One of those components in the vision statement that was written over 15 years ago talks about compassion and innovation, not just innovation for innovation's sake, but compassionate and innovation. And we're going to have an example of that here in a second. One of the things that we're also doing that's on the compassion and innovation side is we will begin this month to start accepting donations via cryptocurrency. Giving Block is an exchange that will allow for individuals that have want to do their philanthropic giving through crypto can do that through Giving Block, and there will be an exchange for us. Yeah. Little proof of concept for Giving Block. This year, $100 million in philanthropic giving has exchanged through Giving Block. They're expecting a 10x growth next year to $1 billion, and I would be happy with 1% of that. It'd be the best year we ever had. So look for that here in the future. In December, before year end, any of you that have capital gains and you don't want to liquidate your crypto, you can give it through Giving Block. So every once in a while on the innovation and compassion side, we dream big. And this is one of those moments. I had a conversation with Joe. I said, wouldn't it be great if Metro had an NFT that we launched today for the Tampa Bay community? And it's important that we do it today because my good friend Tom Brady, he doesn't know that I'm his good friend, but my good friend Tom Brady, he's dropping his Origins NFT next week on 12/7. I want to get in front of that and get some of that capital for good. And so we are going to launch 5 NFTs, numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And these NFTs are going to be for social good. The first NFT that we're going to launch today, number 1, for $5,000, will pay for every one of these food boxes behind me. So 400 families will be able to, and what we're going to do is, if somebody wants that first NFT, we'll take a picture with you with these food boxes, and Joe and his team at MetaCity were just going to help us develop the blockchain and the imagery of you, and this will be something that will live forever and that you can share with your family or your organization that will be a part of making a difference. So $5,000 to feed 400 families. I don't have a plan in the audience. This could fail or this could succeed. Well, now we've got a problem. It's a good problem, but it's, so I got 6,000 over here. Does anybody want to go 65? 65, all right, we're going to go whole numbers. I did not expect this, but I love it. 7? I got a 7. 10. All right, just so we keep this in mind, that's 800 families. That's going to serve 800 families at 10. 11. I love this crowd. I love this community. 11. Does anybody want to do 12? Once, twice. Never been an auctioneer before, but I love it. 3 times. To the lovely lady in the back for $11,000. That's awesome. Ready? I recognize that lady. Treddy, are you going to make your donation through Giving Block? Most likely. All right. Terrific. All right. So we have 4 more at 2,500. Who wants 2,500? 3,000? There's 3,000. There's, stand up. We'll just hold you so I can keep track. So I don't go too far. We're gonna get rid of all these right now. 1, 2. Anybody else? 3, 4. Okay. The 4 people there will have your picture taken with the boxes as well and have an NFT developed for you with your imagery. That's 4 times 3 is $12,000 plus 11, $23,000. That's awesome. Wow. Times, the math in me wants the times 80 is how many families. All right, you all that are still here and want to participate, you can too as well. You can scan the QR code or you can fill out the form. If you would like to help us feed 42,000 families this year throughout Tampa Bay, we are so grateful for you. There's opportunities to volunteer and give back to our community, so we're very grateful for you. I want to thank our panel once again. They were amazing, and there's so much more to be learned. Jerry, thank you for your leadership in coming up with this idea. Mayor Castor, thank you for supporting us in your amazing, kind words. Joe, thank you again for helping us get to this point. Rosa, Michael, Miles, and again, Claudia, just an amazing job. I see someone here to my right. I think I need to stick my hand in here. And why am I doing this? Inside the box, gift certificates. Well, the man who asks all the questions and is at every event I've ever been to, Ron Weaver. All right, well, I hope you all have enjoyed the time together, and thank you all for your generosity. This is just an amazing day. My heart is touched. Thank you all so very much. Hope you have a great day. God bless you all.